right, my friends, welcome back to an autochthonous episode of
What?
V8 Radio. Yes, I'm Kevin Oosty, joined, as always, by our esteemed co-host, Mr. Mike Q-Ball Clark.
And I don't know what to think about that.
Yes, you don't believe that our show is autochthonous?
Well, I got nothing. I got nothing. Sorry.
Well, autochthonous is kind of a synonym for original, so
Oh,
I think we are just, brimming with autochthoneity.
indeed, sir.
So,
Quite so.
Right. See? I wouldn't steer you wrong.
No, you would not. Only during trivia question answering.
Yeah, right. No. That's all how you perceive it.
Sure, true.
It's not a steering, it's a perception.
Exactly. Yeah, speaking of trivia questions, we will start the show with said trivia.
Right on. Well, that tells me you got one.
Oh, boy, howdy, I got one.
All right. Well, last week when we had chatted about this, you didn't have one yet, so you had a few days to grab one up.
Yeah. I had this one in my back pocket waiting for a while, so I decided to pull it out. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. So do you want to go first with yours, or?
Yeah. Get ready for this one, my man. Kevin, with the weather's getting nicer, people are cruising out with their cars, and back in the day when cruise nights were super popular, people were cruising down the boulevard, and invariably you would get a little stoplight to stoplight race action. And before the invention and implementation of the electric stoplight, this would not happen. So tell me, where was the first electric traffic light installed?
Oh, man. All right. Well,
you only have to give me a city.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I'm going to back that up and say I take issue with that.
Oh,
because
do you now?
Yes, I fully believe that people were engaging in unsanctioned illegal racing activity long before there was an electric traffic signal to cue them.
Okay.
Yeah.
You take all the issue you like, fella. Just answer the question.
People waving their arms and using flashlights and pointing and all that stuff. So, but that doesn't get me out of this one, does it?
It does not.
No. All right. I could protest all I want. I could sit this.
True. You may file a grievance with the union if you like.
I can walk out of school. All right.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, I'm going to say that this occurred in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
The very first stoplight signal electric is my guess.
Electric stoplight. Okay. Kevin says La La Land.
Yes.
All right.
You said I just had to name a city, so.
Correct.
All right. Well, that's.
I won't even make you tell me when or what intersection it was in.
Yeah, because I have no idea. I really don't have any idea about LA either, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, it's not a bad guess. Big city, a lot of traffic, even, when cars first came around, I'm sure. So it's.
Well, the interesting thing about that is ever since they invented that thing, they're still not paying attention to them out there. So
this is true.
Lost on the whole culture for 100
Mm-hmm.
years or so, I bet.
Right. Well, over 100 years.
Oh man, he tips his hand a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, right on. All right, well, our esteemed audience will have to stew on that one until the end of the show. That's how we try and hook people, making them wait to say, where was that traffic light?
Right.
Yeah. All right, well, I have one that's nowhere near as
heinous.
As heinous, yeah. So I'll just throw it right out there. Currently, what country is first in automobile production?
First in automobile production.
Meaning the highest number of vehicles produced. Countries on Earth.
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
That produce automobiles.
Yeah, right. All right. So does this mean producing for their own country or producing for the rest of the world? Or
I think it's just, on January 1 to December 31st, the country that made the most cars.
Oh, man. Okay.
I don't know where they all went or if they stayed.
Yeah, that's a little leading here.
Well, it doesn't really matter, I guess. I mean, the most cars is the most cars. If they stayed or went, that's not really what we're focusing on. We just want to know which one produced the most.
Produced the most cars. Okay.
And I'm not talking about trucks. This is cars.
Okay.
And when I say trucks, I'm not talking like medium and heavy duty, like delivery semis. But
Okay.
I will say that, like pickup trucks and
Okay.
light trucks.
Okay, so regular, light vehicles. Okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Let's see. Well, a lot of places will farm out a lot of their auto production because it's cheaper. Mexico they produce a lot of cars. I know they do a lot for Volkswagen.
They do.
Even for the U.S.
A lot of parts there too.
A lot of parts there too. You know what? So that said, I'm gonna throw it out there and just say Mexico makes the most cars.
Mexico
Produces the most vehicles.
All right, hold on. I'm going to note that. Mexico.
Ay, ay, ay.
Very nice. There you go. All right. Well, it's a very interesting observation and guess, and we will find out soon enough.
Yes, sir.
Right on. So there has been quite a bit going on. The spring has taken forever to get here, and it's still not, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I saw you were doing some engine part subassembly work on the GTO motor.
Yes, sir. We got my rings file fitted, the top and second ring file fitted last night, and today I deburred the edges. We ran out of time last night, so I brought them home with me and with a stone and deburred the edges there, and gonna go back probably tomorrow night, Monday night, I should say, and try to get some more done. Maybe take some more parts to get blasted and cleaned up and painted. So we got things moving on this deal.
Literally had your nose to the grindstone.
Literally had my nose to the ring grindstone.
Yeah,
exactly.
the little one.
Yeah, exactly. It only did a little bit of damage to this button nose of mine.
Mm-hmm. How was that experience of grinding and file fitting your rings?
It was pretty cool. I'd never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. I kind of learned the hard way that the second ring is a bit softer than the top ring.
Mm-hmm.
And the second ring I did, I took a little more off than I wanted to.
Yeah,
So.
it'll get you that way.
Oh, it got me. It got me. But I think I should be all right. I mean, if this were a race motor, I'd be concerned. But since being a street only motor, I'm not too upset about it.
What kind of ring gap spec are you installing?
16 thousandths on the top and about 16 on the bottom.
Except for one.
Bottom range.
One's at 18.
Except, if only.
That first one will get you.
Yeah. And Randy was there with me, and I said, "Holy cow, this one opened up a lot." He's like, "Oh yeah, that second one's a little softer." I'm like, "Well, thanks for telling me now."
Yes. Yeah. Well, you got to ease into this stuff.
Yeah, you got to sneak up on it. But the rest went perfect. So.
Good. And then
So I'm
deburring,
pretty
you're just
happy
kind
about
of taking that little edge that you ground and smoothing that out. Was there
Correct.
additional work around the ring? It should have been pretty nice around the rest of it.
Oh yeah, the rest of it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just that end that I ground down a little bit had just a little bit of an edge on it, so it smoothed everything out, and that part should be good to go. Just got to check the oil rings when we go back too, and make sure that they're gapped where they should be. So other than that, it was about a 2-hour process, so not too bad. So
Nice.
it's kind of fun. Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Good. Yeah. Well, it's nice that your hands are in the project, and
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So there's a couple schools of thought on placement of those rings.
Yeah.
There are those who say the gap's got to be clocked 180 on top
Right.
to the second ring to ensure a good squeeze everywhere.
Uh-huh.
Interestingly enough, and I've mentioned Bill Travato before
Yes,
on
you
this
have.
episode, he says put them wherever you want
Uh-huh.
because they're going to spin, and that's what they're
I've
gonna
heard
do.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still put them 180.
Yeah.
It just sits better with my OCD nature.
I probably will too.
Yeah.
So, heck, I might put them at like not 180. What would be a third of that? Like a third out to the second, a third out to the third, and then have the oil rings a third as well. So who knows?
Then they can report back to you and see which one's not doing their job.
Right. So 120, 120, 120. Yeah, that would be it.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. So it's gonna be fun. No matter how it turns out, it'll be great.
Yeah, that's cool. Right on. Mm-hmm. And then on to assembling that short block pretty soon. Then.
Yes, sir. As soon as when we get those rings fitted, we're gonna give the block a final wash, and chase all the holes and everything, all the threads, and start putting things together.
Right on. That'll be a big day.
Yeah. It's going to be a great day.
Yeah.
I still got to spec a cam out. So I got to wait until I know what cam I'm going to use and what those specs are before I do any work on those heads, because I don't know, depending on the lift, I might need a taller valve or cut the spring pockets or however I'm going to do it. So we got that.
It all interdepends on each other.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So,
it's cool. And we've talked before about being able to do these projects, and especially, we all have so much stuff going on, and of course, you've got the family and other obligations. And I heard something the other day on a radio, an AM talk show somewhere, and the guy made a great point. And he said, making the plan and having the project is really only half the battle. The other half is, and the term he used is protecting the time.
Huh.
Which I thought was pretty interesting, because we all have these plans. Part of it is make the plan, right? I need these parts, and I'm going to do it at, in your case, my buddy Randy's house, and get all this stuff together. But until you can assign some time and protect that time, there's a good chance that it won't happen.
Yeah.
And you and I are kind of victims of this. Just, the other day we had planned on recording this the other night, and then I had something come up at the end that, involved a whole bunch of different people at once. So it was like, oh man, and it got moved, and there you go. So yeah. And I'm not to say, say that what we're doing is, low on the totem pole by any stretch.
Well, I mean, none of us are getting rich off of this, and you got to take care of priorities that keep you going.
Yeah.
I get it. This is kind of a fun side project here. So
we do have flexibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is good.
Exactly.
But in your case, doing that ring job and somebody who's going to work on restoring their car in their garage or whatever, if you can't protect that time, it doesn't really matter if you make the time, or it doesn't matter if you have your ducks in a row.
Right.
So
right.
And this guy was adamant about defending that, and I guess what he was suggesting is, obviously check your calendar, check the family calendar, and all the rest. You don't want to be just declaring that on Wednesday afternoon, to heck with the job and to heck with the family, I'm going to work on my stuff. But let them all know and see if everything makes sense and is cleared, and then that's your time. So.
Yep.
You were able to do that.
I was able to do that, and I learned that I need to. I know this is quoting my project, but I have to involve the family to get that time to be able to be gone for a few hours and make sure that I'm not shirking any of my family responsibilities while I'm doing that. And my wife, God bless her, she's been more than cool with this whole deal. She wants this going about as badly as I do.
Sure, yeah.
So, there was times when that block was at the machinist, and she's like, when the heck are you getting that car back? When are you getting your block back?
Yeah, well,
when is this going to happen?
As was my wife.
Yes. I had a couple of wives on me to get this going.
Opposite of what a lot of people might assume. A lot of people think their wives don't really want much to do with these kind of things and look at these as opportunities to take time away from them. But in our case, we're pretty lucky.
Yeah, I'm super lucky. She's been terrific about the whole thing. So, I look at a calendar and I consult with her. I'm like, hey, I think, Monday after work I can go get some engine work done. And she'd be like, yeah, we don't have anything going on, right? And nope, like, do it.
Yeah.
And get a lot done. So,
right. Well, she wants to go for cruise in the GTO also.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and I want that too.
Right. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's great stuff. So looking forward to it. So if my hopefully my timeline still holds true and I can still get it done sometime this year.
Yes. Well,
That's what
we're recording this in the middle of April, so
Yeah.
middle third week or so. So yeah, that's we'll see.
Yes, sir.
Ball's in your court at this point.
Ball is in my court. You are right. You are right. No one to blame but me this time.
Right. So I had an interesting call the other day with my friend Michael Gray, who's with AMD, with Auto Metal Direct, the reproduction parts company. And I noticed that AMD has been releasing piece by piece a bunch of Ford reproduction parts. So I saw some of this stuff popping up online, and like 63 and 64 Galaxies do not have sheet metal readily available for these cars. And I have a 62, and there's definitely nothing available for that thing.
Right.
You can get interior parts and
Sure.
some trim and screws and mechanical parts all day long. But there was a couple companies making patch panel quarters, and you've been playing with GTOs long enough to remember the days before a skin or a full quarter panel was reproduced for your GTO. And the old days, it was the front half of the quarter up to the middle of the wheel arch, and then the back half of the quarter, and it was a terrible stamping, and just tons and tons of work. Well, that's really all that's still around for the Galaxy world, until AMD jumped in with both feet and is working on doing, I think, upwards of 450 part numbers for these cars.
Really?
It is huge. Yeah.
That's huge.
It is. It's giant. And so I was intrigued by this. So I reached out to Mr. Gray, and I had some questions. I was very, like I said, intrigued by the whole thing. So, I asked him, how is it that they land on a particular car that they're going to start reproducing parts for?
Right.
And the answers are pretty interesting because, Camaros and even GTOs and Mustangs and all that stuff, the parts have been around forever. So the first thing was to kind of identify a hole in the market. And the Galaxy market's, it's interesting because they also look at the number of cars that were built.
Okay. So well, that makes sense.
Right. It makes perfect sense. And a lot of what he said, I went, oh, yeah, right on. I'm an idiot for not thinking about that. But the size of the market definitely helps dictate the size of the market for them to make the parts.
Sure.
Well, another interesting thing is they look at distribution. Are there companies that sell parts for those cars that could reach customers with the new parts? Because if you make all the parts for this car and there's only one shop selling them, and nobody knows who they are,
you have a heck of a backlog.
Well, yeah, exactly. So they're being smart about it and considering the distribution channel. But another interesting thing is that, and what we found restoring that 66 7-liter is that a lot of these cars rusted away bad. So there is definitely a need for the parts,
Sure.
So now you've got numbers, you got distribution, because there's a lot of companies, some good solid retailers that do Ford parts. And then you've got the need, because many of these things, rusted away to nothing. So that was pretty cool. Another interesting thing that they try to analyze is there obviously a strong following for the car, but is there media for the car? So are there magazines and TV shows and social outlets and forums that have big enthusiast followings? Because that helps them spread the word, and it helps them identify, who they're trying to reach on these things. So the business side was pretty interesting to hear, because I never really considered a whole bunch of that stuff. But the good thing is today's technology allows a really accurate reproduction part to be made with far fewer steps than it used to take.
Is that right?
It's far less of a mechanical process. So like in the, when General Motors or Ford or Chrysler, their replacement parts, generally the law was they had to make stuff for 10 years or have parts after a car was out of production for 10 years. And once those kind of went away, the after initial assembly or initial manufacture parts were oftentimes stamped with worn out dies and even a new old stock original equipment panel might be off. It might be rounded on the corners or whatever, because it wasn't produced during the main run of the cars where they were maintaining the stamping dies and everything. It was done afterwards. And a lot of times the NOS new old stock supply for these parts, a lot of those pieces were actually cast-offs from the original production.
Really?
So as, to use GM as an example, as the Fisher Body plant is making bodies, if a quarter panel's got a wrinkle in it or something and it didn't meet their quality standard, they push off the side. Well, that becomes a repair panel.
Really?
For a crash car. Yeah, not all of them, but some of them did that.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Yeah, right. So when you're starting from scratch today, the process of making a brand new panel, I thought was kind of interesting. And so they started releasing a few pictures of some of their new full quarter panels for 63 and 64 Galaxies. And the same question always seems to pop up. What would your question be if you saw a brand new quarter panel and you had the ear of the manufacturer when you're looking at it?
How good is it?
Essentially, that's it. The main question people ask is it made of thinner steel than the original?
Right. Yeah, the quality of it, are all the contours faithful to the original? Yeah, the thickness. Yeah, those are the two biggest things. People want them to fit nicely when they put them on. They don't want to have to put 10, 12, 14 hours of work in them before they're able to get it to look nice on that car.
Right. So the thinness or the metal gauge question was one that I honestly thought was a little bit of maybe a myth or a misnomer. But Mike Gray confirmed that a lot of companies were releasing thinner panels.
Really?
Right out of the box. And the reason for that was, if you're the original manufacturer, if you're Ford and you're stamping out panels, you have the budget and the resources to maintain the stamping dies and to change them out as necessary.
Right.
But if you're an aftermarket parts company, you got to go easy on those dies, because that's a huge expense to make them and to keep them happy and stamping and accurate. So they would sneak in a slightly thinner gauge of steel, which was easier to form.
I see.
And therefore the long-term investment. Yeah, right. It was interesting because, I would have thought, I couldn't imagine that the material cost of a gauge or two thinner of steel was worth the risk of not having an accurate panel. But when you stamp out 100, 1,000, or however many on that set of dies, that's all the budget you have. I could see how that would be.
I could see that too.
Right. And another one that I never knew about was a lot of the reproduction glass is thinner.
Really?
Than original glass. Yes. Yeah.
Son of a gun.
So what that does is it's easier and cheaper to make, and it can throw off how your trim fits. It can throw off how your panels fit, how your regulators work, and all that stuff. So it's interesting advice as you restore a car. There are certain companies that will publish the thickness of the glass in their specifications. Measure your original stuff and make sure that whatever you're getting is accurate. And AMD makes glass too. I didn't know that either, but they do reproduce glass. Cool. So that was all pretty cool. So in their case, they're using dies that are now being designed with laser scanned 3D CAD technology. So they can scan a car and build all the dimensions in a 3D CAD program, and then make the inverse, which becomes the stamping die.
Okay.
And he said what they do then is they make some prototype panels with those dies, and if everything checks out, then they'll do like a heat treat or a different. Maybe they'll plate them or polish them. He did mention it, but it's escaping me. But I think they actually plate the dies to be stronger.
Sure.
And then those become the production stamps.
I gotcha.
And in much the same way, like in our shop at V8 Speed and Resto, when we're building a car for a customer, it's important to us to install the actual trim that's going on the car, because we can fit the windows and fit the panels to that trim.
Right.
And then we don't want to switch that trim for another set for final assembly because it might be different,
Sure.
So what they do is they try to make sure that they're using the exact same die that they used, as they prototyped. They just detail the die and harden it and make it more of an industrial.
Make it production worthy.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I gotcha.
Yeah, it's pretty neat stuff. So
it is pretty neat stuff. I like hearing how they come up with the formula to decide whether to produce a part or not, based on I would imagine they would take the number of production vehicles produced and probably estimate how many they think are left. Mm-hmm. And then take that number and apply some other E = MC² formula to it, and come up with a ratio. So
it's a huge investment. So
totally,
they got to get it right,
Yeah.
And I think when they've been around, 10 years or so, and I think in the beginning, and I'm just kind of speaking freely here, but I think their mission initially was to make a better panel than some of the other ones out there. So they looked at things that they thought were substandard and tried to improve on panels. And now they've got all those, mainstream super popular cars covered. And now they're kind of going after some of the more niche stuff that other companies might not, be happy taking that risk doing.
That's a risk.
It is a risk. You got to you make them, you got to be able to sell them. So here's another thing that I thought was pretty cool is it doesn't do anybody, it does them some good, but it doesn't do them all the good if they only make the quarter panel, because you got to make the quarter panel and then the trunk extension that welds to it, and then the trunk floor that welds to that, and then the wheelhouse that welds to both, and then the rocker panel. So if you're working on a rusty car and you saw you had a brand new quarter panel, but you got nothing to stick it to, your chances of success are limited, right? So that's what they are doing is they're trying to make, thigh bone connects to the knee bone and the knee bone connects to the shin bone. And they're releasing kind of sections of the car at once. So it's going to be trunk floor, inner and outer wheelhouse, trunk extension, and quarter panel.
Sure.
So that people can, and it makes sense from a sales standpoint too. There's more to buy, and chances are all that stuff is rusted out. If any of it is, it all is.
Yeah.
So he said they use at least 3 cars to scan to make the panel.
I see.
So I called them martyr cars, and he said it's pretty. In some ways, it sucks because you got to find at least 3 nice ones,
right?
And then scan them, and they're going to give up their life so that more panels can be made. So they very carefully strip them and drill out all the spot welds and
deconstruct it carefully, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yep. Remove the whole panel and then make the scans and then make the new one and put it in its place where that one came off of to see that it fits the hole.
That it fits. Okay.
And then revise that for other cars because not all cars are the same. So they're always looking for original, uncrashed, not rusty.
Yeah, not with a gallon of filler on it. Those kind of cars that are true originals. That's got to be on those cars. Those Galaxies. That's got to be a bit of a task.
It was. He said I think they've got 18 months into this project already, and they're just starting to release parts. Now.
Oh, are they just now? Okay.
They bank at least a couple of years to bring something to market. And it's a heck of a challenge, and they've obviously known that they were doing this, but it's only recently that the word's getting out because there's always that risk of advertising a part that isn't available, or didn't go right in the last stage of manufacturing. And
I see. Yeah.
We all have catalogs.
That's a pretty cool. It's a pretty cool process they go through.
Yeah, it is. So now when people talk about reproducing body panels, especially, and they also do trim and hinges and gas tanks and all kinds of stuff. But it's like it's almost funny when everybody wants the car they have, So I got a '62 Ford. And I've been around this long enough to know that it's a 1 year only body style, so that's got an effect. There's not that many of them made, so that's got an effect. I'm not really going to go up to them and say, "Well, you need to make parts for my '62," but that's what everybody does. It's sure. I got a Matador and I need a fender. you got to make it, and it's not like you just go into the Magic Factory and pull one off the.
Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah, right. I mean, you could 3D print whatever you want, right?
Right. Sure I can. It'll be made out of plastic. Have a nice day.
Right, not quite.
Yeah.
But there is some newer technology also being involved. And one of the things that I thought also was kind of cool is some cars have a very similar panel, except for maybe the marker light design changes. So Firebirds are a good example. The quarter panel design is basically the same for 7 and 8, but the marker light change. And they used to have to do a whole separate stamping to cut that marker light hole out. But today, that's laser cut. So they take the same panel and they just point the 1 year laser at it or point the other year laser at it, and there you go. So
I'll be darned.
It is neat.
That is neat.
Yeah.
Boy, the things you learn. Gosh dang it.
Yeah. So
see, kids, this show's educational.
It is. It is. So I was appreciative that he took some time to kind of walk me through all that, because a lot of it, like I said, I wouldn't have guessed. But for Galaxy fans, it's good news. So, keep your eyes open, because they're also working on 66 and 7, and they're also going to be doing Torino 68 to 72 way down the line.
Right on.
Yeah.
I didn't know the 62 Galaxy was a 1 year only 1 year only body style. I thought it shared it with the 63.
No, I mean, a 1 year thing is kind of a misnomer. So you look at the interchangeability of the platform. So the platform is essentially the same. I mean, some of the suspension parts go back to 57, and they go all the way up to 64. So those are compatible underneath. But the body itself changed every year. 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. They're all on the same platform, but none of the door. I think a 61 and 2 door interchanges, but I don't think a 3 and 4 do because of the trim and stuff. I mean, there's subtle differences between them all.
I see.
And it's like your GTO. We always say kind of 66 and 7 are kind of the same.
Right.
But
similar,
really they're not.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some. I mean, the hoods are the same.
There you go. Yeah.
In the
hoods and glass.
65, 6, and 7 hoods are identical. But I remember when the 66 quarters became available, and the 67 crowd was like, "Oh, so close! We needed quarters for the 67s." I mean, you could put it on a 66 quarter on a 67, but you would have to work the hell out of it in order to make it fit and make it correct.
Right.
Because the tail treatment is different, and just other little minor differences. They from 10 feet away they look the same. But when you get up close, you can see all the differences. Absolutely.
Right. And for whatever reason, 63 was a breakout year in popularity for Galaxies.
Was it?
They sold a lot of them, and a lot of people are restoring those cars. And 64, was a high point too. So it makes sense for them to go after those to start with. Another interesting thing on that line is, if you're familiar with the Starliner, which was a 60 and 61 hardtop Galaxy that had a fastback roof design. And the whole point of that car was to gain advantage in NASCAR. Back in those days, they used to race convertibles. NASCAR had a whole series of racing convertibles.
Really?
Yeah, it's crazy. And in fact, in 62, there's this famous picture of a thing called a Starlift hardtop, a removable hardtop on a convertible. So it's a convertible car with a fiberglass roof that has a fastback design to make the convertible a legal race car, but then added the aerodynamics of the roof line.
I see.
And
I gotcha.
A couple of those Starlift roofs are out there. I don't know if any of them are actual production. I don't think it ever happened.
I see.
Yeah, so the Starliner was an actual hardtop car, and they're super cool. It's a beautiful profile, and along the, I guess it'd be the B pillar in the back around the rear glass on the side, there's actually stainless, or I guess it is a stainless skin star that's stamped in. There's 3 of them that go down, and it's a space age, looking car. And I thought, how cool would it be, to reproduce parts for those things? Because that's a unicorn. And somebody pointed out they made over 100,000 of them.
What?
But you never see them. Yeah. Over the 2-year period. So it's like, wow. Who knows?
That's pretty trippy.
It doesn't.
And you never see them.
Never see them. Yeah.
I'll be darned.
But that's
right. Someone out there has to have one. Let's get some pictures, people.
Oh yeah. Well, we featured one, a really cool one on Muscle Car of the Week, a 61. That was one of the few modified cars we've ever featured on that show, because it had a 63. Did it have I think it had a 427 in it instead of in 63. It would have had a 406. Late 62. Well, so this was a 61 car, so it would have had a 406.
Okay.
The 427 didn't come out till 63, but anyway, it's they're super neat cars. But
I'll have to check my archive for that Muscle Car of the Week.
Yeah. But don't be expecting your next parts catalog to come in the mail with the reproduction trim on a Starliner. Maybe someday.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh man, good stuff. Real good stuff.
Yeah. And you saw that video. We're talking about making parts. You saw that video that the Ring Brothers put out.
I did. That was kind of, I'm glad they put that out, but it's kind of disappointing that they had to put that out. And for those that didn't see that, they were talking about parts counterfeiting, aftermarket parts counterfeiting, their own parts that they're finding that people are knocking off and selling at a cheaper price and completely undercutting all of their R&D and all their hard work that they put into creating these in the first place. Mm-hmm. And it's, it hurts the business. It hurts the whole industry is what it does. It's not just them that it's happening to. It's happening to a lot of places. I read an article in Hot Rod a long time ago about MSD getting counterfeit ignition boxes and some being returned to them thinking that they were the genuine article when they weren't working, and they had to tell the customers, sorry, this isn't our box. Right. And the article gave telltale signs on how to spot the counterfeit versus the genuine article, which was great information.
Yeah, in fact, that MSD deal, did you ever see inside one of those?
In the article I did.
Yeah, so if you buy an MSD ignition box, it's got a circuit board and it's a capacitive discharge ignition. We always joked we call it the magical speed device, is what MSD stood for. But the Chinese knockoff ones, when you open it up, it just had an HEI ignition module.
That's right.
Soldered into it. Right. It had none of the electronics, but it worked.
Right.
But it was far from the same thing.
Exactly.
And again, Michael Gray at AMD was talking about how a huge part of being able to reproduce these parts is the licensing that they have to do with Ford.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, absolutely.
Every single part has to be individually licensed so that it's okay and it meets standards set forth by the OE to be able to make these parts. And in the case of the Ring Brothers, they make billet accessories, hood hinges, and door handles, and hardware, and all kinds of billet parts that are their own design. So they don't really have a giant legal team enforcing a license to have other people make these. These are their own deal. Yeah. And like you said, they spend hours and hours and hours of coming up with the idea. So there's intellectual property to start
Right.
with, and then they have to, have their guy in house do the design work, do the initial CNC work if it's going to be a machine piece, and then they do all the testing to make sure it actually works if it's a hinge or a moving part.
Right.
All the way down to putting it in an appropriate box. Ring Brothers parts, they come packaged very nicely, and you pay money for them, but you know what you're paying for. There's
Right.
obvious quality when you get the part.
For sure.
And Kelly and I have known those guys forever. I mean, I think we joke about it at the SEMA show or wherever we see them somewhere. I think I did their first television interview.
Is that right?
Yeah, back in '98, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we've known them for a long, long time, and they've always been, straight shooters. And what you see is exactly what you get. In fact, you get more than what you see.
Is that right?
When you use their parts, because they're just so well thought out. And like you said, it just really sucks that there are those who say, "Hey, that's pretty cool. Well, I've got this little device. I can send this to a job shop overseas, and they can start spitting them out, and I'm going to make the money."
Yep, exactly. I'll undercut their price by, 20-30%, and I'll make a huge profit for myself, and I'll tell them to go screw off. And it sucks.
Yeah,
it really does suck.
And eBay has been a clearinghouse for a lot of this stuff.
Yep.
Because you have no idea who you're buying from, and there's no requirement to have an eBay store. And believe me, I'm a huge fan of eBay. I love eBay.
Yeah.
I use it every day. But there are certain things, if I'm going to buy a branded part, I'm buying it from an authorized dealer or the manufacturer direct.
Yep, that's the safest way to make sure you're getting the genuine article. Yeah, I would totally stay away from eBay or Craigslist or any of those other non-official manufactured sites that would sell those things. I would only go straight to the horse's mouth on that one, or go to an authorized reseller. You buy something through a Summit, and that way you have, if you get it and it happens to not be right, at least you have some fallback to say, hey, you sent me this. This happens to be counterfeit. Let's get this fixed.
Right. I remember a while back, somebody put out a thing online because it's real easy to make complaints and spread bad news that a ring hinge broke, and they're like, oh, these things are garbage. Well, it wasn't theirs. It was a knockoff that broke, and they took obviously not only notice because of the business ramifications, but they were offended, and rightly so.
Should be.
Right? Yeah. Like, man, for you to drag our name through the mud, it wasn't even our part to start with. How much work does it take to regain that customer's trust? They've already spent the money. They're not getting it back. What are you going to do? Send it back to eBay?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, buddy, can you send me the real thing this time? I don't think so.
Right. Yeah.
Jeez.
So it was really interesting to see them put that video out and appeal directly to their customer base and say, look, this is a thing. This is a problem.
Yeah, it's a real problem. It's probably not going to get any better, but as long as if people are aware of what's happening, I mean, there's going to be people who are just going to say, I don't care. I'm going to buy the cheapest thing I can get, and if it looks like a Ring Brothers hinge and I can get it for half off of what a genuine one would be, then I'm going to do that. And there's no getting away from that. People are going to do that, but I mean, you really need to appeal to the upright, someone's sense of fair play, I should say, and appeal to them and say, listen, don't buy this cheap knockoff junk that they designed off of my design. It's not the same quality. It's not the same part. Of course, it's going to be cheaper,
and it's just not right.
It's just not right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it all boils down to that. It's not right.
And on a lesser level, there's also the intermarket thievery of design and ideas and stuff, where a legitimate company is going to take somebody else's design, and and that becomes a whole other gray area. But at least there's more of a consumer protection because you're buying it. It might be similar, but that's really between those two companies now.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, they got to duke it out in the patent court or copyright court or whatever it's going to be. So, yeah, they got to duke that out themselves, and you can see how that turns out.
The ones that really suck are the people that are hung up on watching the house flipping shows, and they're buying cars cheap, and they're throwing all the eBay junk parts at it to make it look like it's something.
Right.
And then jacking the price up, and then the poor guy who buys this thing has nothing.
He's stuck with
all knockoff.
With a knockoff pile.
Right. So I'm going to say if you're out looking for a car and it's got, high-end parts on it, or it's supposed to, make sure that the guy's got all the receipts and guy, has all the packaging, the seller. And if you're going to sell a car, keep all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Even if you're not going to sell the car, you keep it all anyway. But that way, when somebody says, hey, I see you got all this stuff, and you can say, sure, yeah, this is my receipt from Ring Brothers and whatever, then that car is going to be worth it,
Yeah, that's a huge selling point, I think.
It is.
If I were selling cars, exactly, I would want to have all that information so I can prove, look, here's all the receipts. Here's the part. This is it. If anything happens, you have the receipt now. So have a nice day.
Right. Some of them actually have transferable warranties.
That's even better.
And some of
even
them,
more reason to buy from the manufacturer.
Yeah, and I know the Ring Brothers, and I'm speaking again out of school here, but I'm pretty sure that if you bought a car with their hinges on and it had a problem, even if it's 5 years down the road, that they would at least help you out with it.
I don't doubt that.
Yeah. And that's the difference. I remember seeing some Aeromotive stuff too, that Aeromotive had found the same way that MSD did with all these knockoff Chinese parts, and the labels had bad spelling on them, and the packaging was all screwed up, and and it's like, oh man. So they were trying to get their actual packaging out there to show people, when you open the box, this is what it's supposed to look like.
Gotcha. Gee whiz. Yeah. No, I hope the Chinese knockoffs don't look at that and say, oh, we got to change our packaging now. Now we got to make it look like that, so it looks even more genuine.
Well, and Ring's alluded to that. They have similar packaging as well. Because if you can copy the part, you can copy the package.
Right.
But it just blows. These things that can take the fun out of the project real fast.
Yeah, it really can. So getting poor quality knockoff stuff is no fun, especially if it's not what you thought you bought.
Yeah, right. Right.
If you did it intentionally, bought it, then hey, you're on your own, babe.
Well, and on that note, there's some control arms out there that I've seen that people have bought online, knowing that they are a copy of somebody else's, and they bought them because they were substantially less money. And then the word on the street is that, yeah, you can buy those, but then you just have to put good ball joints in them, and then you've got an okay part. And it's like, man, so I think some people feel like they're really getting the inside scoop. It's like, oh, I know the arm is junk, and the ball joints are garbage, but if I put the ball joints in, then I've got, pretty close to the name brand one, and I save myself $40 or whatever at the end. It's like,
right.
No, that's not the right answer.
Yeah, that's not the right answer. You're absolutely right.
Save the extra whatever, because we all know building these cars is not cheap.
No, it's not.
And if you can't identify why the real part isn't worth the money, then maybe you don't need the part at all. If it's a tubular suspension that you're looking at, and it's like, they want whatever, $750 for a set of arms, but I'm not going to use my car that way, then just don't buy them. Get stock arms, rebuild them, and call it a day, as opposed to saying, well, the real ones are super expensive, and I'm not going to use a car that way, so I'm going to put crappy, unsafe ones for half the price. There's no logic there either.
No, there's not.
Because I've seen them. I've seen these things break. I've seen the welds break. I've seen the ball joints come apart. It's bad. Yeah.
Oh boy.
So
anyway,
that's
not good.
Enough with the doom and gloom, but
yes,
it was just some stuff that I think was worthy of a conversation.
Certainly, it totally is. It's always worthy of that.
Yeah. So Where are we at here? We have people patiently waiting, and the trivia
Yes, we
question that you had posed to me
Yeah.
is the city, right? Not the state.
The city in which the very first electric traffic light was installed and operated in. And Kevin said it was the beautiful town of Los Angeles, California.
Right.
Wrong. The first city was, believe it or not, Cleveland, Ohio, my friend. That's right. Who'd have thunk it? In August 5th, 1914, at the corner of East 105th and Euclid.
There you go.
Crazy,
Used to
crazy.
be a barber shop right there.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Could have been.
Could still be.
They called it the stop and go,
Right.
Man, really? Cleveland. Well,
Yeah, Cleveland.
there you go.
No one more surprised than me.
Yes, being an Ohioan yourself.
Being from Cleveland, yes. You think I'd have known that?
So you know where that is?
Vaguely, yeah. I know where, East 105th. It's actually not that far from where I grew up.
Wow.
Maybe 10, 15 miles at the most.
So you could have stopped there at some point.
I could have.
Yeah,
It's
how
very
about that?
possible. Very possible.
You are part of automotive history and didn't even realize it.
Didn't even realize it. I'm automotive royalty. I never knew it.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on your side, the question to you was, what country is first in automotive production?
Yes.
And your guess was the thriving country of Mexico.
Correctamundo.
Incorrectamundo.
Ooh, dang it.
Yeah. The correct answer, my friend, is China.
China.
Yes.
What?
Yep. Yep.
Who let that happen?
The automotive industry, I'm reading this. It's going to sound smarter than what I am. The automotive industry in China has been the largest in the world measured by automobile unit production since 2008.
Really?
Since 2009, production of automobiles in China exceeds that of the European Union or that of the United States and Japan combined.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Who's getting all these cars?
Well, most of them are staying there, which was kind of your question. And I'm reading again here.
Yeah.
The traditional big four domestic car manufacturers in China are, I guess it's SAIC Motor, which maybe is called SIAC or something.
All right.
The very widely popular Dongfeng.
Oh, you can't make this up, folks.
No. Maybe they make the Dongfeng,
Yeah, maybe.
Corvette or whatever. FAW and Chang'an, which sounds like a Mexican slang term.
Right.
But it's not.
It does,
it's
doesn't it?
CHANG''AN.
So I was close with this Mexico thing.
Kind of, yeah.
Right. I'm in the ballpark.
And then, of course, there's the Beijing Automotive Group, Brilliance Automotive, BYD, Chery, Geely, Jianghuai, Great Wall, and Guangzhou Automobile Group. And then, of course, several that are allied with our domestic companies, like Chevrolet's got a big presence over there. Buick, of course, is huge.
Sure.
In China.
Love the Buick.
General Motors really is hot and heavy in China.
Right.
So yeah, it's the Chinese, man. And here's an interesting statistic. The number of registered cars, buses, vans, and trucks on the road in China reached 62 million in 2009 and is expected to exceed 200 million in 2020.
Whoa. That's 2 years away. You got to be kidding me. Oh my gosh.
100 million vehicles. Yeah.
Jeez.
So their economy is obviously growing rapidly, and they're they're experiencing the ability to have more and more people have access to cars as they make more. And
right.
We're over here getting the screws tightened to us on emission standards and all the rest, and they're like tripling their car and truck output. in a couple of years. Yeah. With very little regard, I think, to the ecosystem in general.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Yeah, I can't imagine what their emission standards, if any, are. For crying out loud, especially in for big cities like Beijing, the air quality is just horrendous, is from what I understand.
And they do have to meet standards that for export. But you notice,
right?
Your neighbors don't have a Dongfeng at this point.
They do not have a Dongfeng, not even a Qinggao.
Or a Qinggan.
Qinggan.
So I think that might be the reason why some of these aren't being exported, is because they have to meet crash and emissions requirements of other countries. That
I remember seeing I think years ago a video of a Chinese manufactured car in a crash test, and it was pretty scary. Yeah. How this thing just exploded when it hit something.
Yeah, right. Right. And it's a bummer, because the people are the victims.
Yeah.
The same way you see, you'll see these news briefs that it's like, this Chinese, and everything's government backed, So
yeah.
The Chinese some manufacturing or construction company put up, 9 high-rise apartment buildings in record time in 3 weeks or something, and then all of a sudden they all tip over like dominoes.
Yeah,
because there's no codes or standards or whatever. Right. They look cool, but it's like, wow, yeah.
China, those crafty devils.
Apparently, so I thought that was kind of the theme for today's show. We got.
Oh, that's a perfect question.
Yeah, how about that?
Why didn't I think of that? Gosh dang it.
So does that undo my my Cleveland steamer that I took on the trip?
Oh, boy. Oh, that was perfect. You sure did, didn't you? Oh, boy. Oh, man. Yeah. Thank you very much. Good night, folks.
Yes, try the veal. Tip your waitress. If it wasn't for her, you'd be sober.
Oh, brother.
All right. Well, that was fun.
That was fun. Totally.
All right. Well, hey, it's always fun doing this show. I appreciate the time. And
always, my friend.
I'm walking miles in your shoes here because I'm losing these trivia questions left and right. So I got to sharpen up my game.
Yeah.
But, I'll get there.
Like I said before, I got to come up with some outlandish nonsense to get you.
Yeah, well, two can play at that game, my friend.
Yeah, well, you've been playing at that game forever. In relation to my intellect, your questions are outlandish.
All right. Well, listen. Press on the GTO, and we'll look forward to future updates. And
cool.
We appreciate everybody listening to V8 Radio. The other day, we what did I say? We were climbing the ranks on that iTunes thing.
Yeah, the most listened to shows.
Yeah, automotive shows. Yeah, we were well into the second column, I think.
Whoa.
For the first time. Yeah. So we appreciate that. We've gotten some.
So we're on second base. We made second base.
I know. We're getting
all right.
We're getting there. We're getting some great reviews and a lot of subscribers. We appreciate that. We're always reading the feedback wherever we can. And we enjoy reading those. And to our reviewer who said Mike gets loud sometimes, you can't help it. He's a joyful guy. He laughs and it gets loud.
I'm doing my best to really quiet it down, folks. Welcome to Delicious Dish.
That's right. Next time we're gonna put him on some mind-numbing drugs, so he's just
right. I need a Xanax before I do this show.
Just flattened out completely. You can also listen on iTunes, which is cool. My garage setup, I can stream the TuneIn Radio app, which I can stream through Amazon, which is pretty neat if you have an Amazon device. We come right through your TV set that way. And then of course Google Play, Stitcher. Stitcher had an issue, and they weren't sharing all of our episodes, but now they are doing that again, so we thank them for correcting that. And, of course, our Facebook page and the V8radio.com website is where you'll get all of it with the pictures added bonus pictures.
Right on.
So once again, well, thanks for listening, Mike. It's always a pleasure. And
likewise.
Try and keep the shiny side up. And we will talk at you next time on VA Radio.